So I recently took the world's cheapest cruise at just $11 a day. I had no idea what to expect, but I will say this cruise was eventful to say the least. From traveling to some of the most popular and beautiful destinations in the world, to being entertained, to seeing parties that parents wouldn't want to see their kids at, comedians that say the N-word repeatedly, and even fights, I gotta admit this vacation cruise did somewhat shock me. However, I'll talk about some of those events later on in the video. Now, before we dive too deep into this video, I do want to put a brief and small disclaimer out there. I'm going to be discussing the good, the bad, and ugly of this cheap $11 a day cruise. And regardless of what shirt I'm currently wearing, this is not Disney World. There are pros and cons to everything. So for all you Carnival lovers out there that are going to get hurt and offended, well, you're gonna have to suck it up on this one. So the world's cheapest cruise would be a 4-night sailing on board the Carnival Conquest sailing to the Caribbean. Now this ship would be a seasoned cruise ship, launched in 2002. It has 13 decks, holds 3,000 passengers, and cost $500 million to build. The initial cost for this cruise right out of the gate would be $50 for an interior stateroom. After all the port fees and taxes would be applied, the total will come out to $192 with an onboard credit of $50. My cruise will be sailing out of the largest cruise port on the entire planet, Port Miami. Upon arrival to the terminal from start to finish, by that I mean going from the terminal to getting on board the cruise ship, the process was very smooth and overall fairly quick. The only note that I noticed while being there, Carnival calls itself the fun ships. However, when I got there, I want to say the port staff and the employees there weren't exactly fun. They seemed kind of angry and stressed out. However, keep in mind this is the largest cruise port in the world, so there's a lot going on when you stack it up to the smaller cruise ports where the portsmen and everybody there have a little bit more time to kind of hang out with everybody and give you a good experience right out of the gate. When I did board the Carnival Conquest, something caught my eye immediately about the design of the ship. I've noticed that older Carnival ships have this wacky, tacky theme going on. Now, I like it personally, and this ship in particular, the Carnival Conquest, had somewhat of a French theme going on with it because the ship was originally designed to sail out of New Orleans and they wanted to pay respects to that area. Upon boarding the ship, unfortunately, I had a 2.5-hour wait to finally get into my room and drop my bags off. Now, this process is not uncommon on any particular ship. However, I was a little bummed out that I had to carry my bag around, but so did everybody else, so it is what it is. But I did use this time to just explore the ship and see what she had to offer. So one thing that I want to point out that I've noticed about these older Carnival ships compared to the newer ones is that I do believe that they overall have the best design, especially when it came to the Carnival Conquest. They have bars, pools, hot tubs, restaurants, literally everywhere. Everything flows pretty well, and they even have an area that's kind of like a pool and hot tub area with an retractable roof. They also have dedicated nightclubs. They have a golf course. I just think overall the utilization of the space on board the Carnival Conquest was absolutely amazing. Just keep in mind, on a cruise ship, from a business perspective, every single square inch on board a cruise ship is considered real estate that must be used to hopefully generate some profit. My cabin was as expected. It was small, uneventful, but functional. It was an interior cabin. For 50 bucks, what do you expect on an older seasoned ship? Now, I'm not really picky at all. Interiors these days aren't really my favorite because there is no sunlight. For most people, it will throw your sleep schedule out, but that was the least of my concerns. I will say that thankfully, I wasn't on one of these decks, but it seemed like every other deck, there was a hint of sewage on board. Now, I do always say that Carnival's older seasoned ships are usually pretty well kept. But like I said, every other deck you just kind of smelled this, and for every other deck that you didn't smell the sewage, there was a small hint of Mary Jane on board, but I'll talk more about that later because that situation got pretty crazy. The sail away party was great as usual. I always say there is no cruise line out there that does a sail away like Carnival. I think it's the people overall. Everybody just wants to get up and dance and be involved in everything on Carnival ships, more so than like a Royal Caribbean or an NCL. However, I will say when it came to the food on board, it was basically a non-event. There was one restaurant on board, a steakhouse as far as real restaurants. They did have Guy's Burgers. I indulged in that quite a bit while I was there. But when it came to the buffet, Well, I was a little disappointed, but I also kind of expected all of this to be there. When it came to the food options at night, they only had pirate pizza. I will say the food and pizza rather on board these ships are absolutely amazing, and they will surprise you and somewhat blow you away. But I was disappointed in the fact that somebody somewhere stole the Parmesan cheese and there was no more available. That one kind of bummed me out because it happened at the very beginning of the cruise. When it comes to the environment overall leading into the nightlife, I gotta say that it was a very active crowd. Like I said, Carnival people are usually very involved with all the activities and festivities that are going on board. There were definitely a lot of new and first-time cruisers and travelers on board. And when it came to the smoking area, well, I gotta say, I got contact high just being over there. It was absolutely wild. Like I said, you could smell weed in the hallways, and believe it or not, I promise you this is true. What blew me away is that there were multiple people that were running around selling weed on the ship. Somebody even came to knock on my door to ask me if I wanted to buy some weed. Now, I don't think this guy was just randomly going door to door asking people these types of questions. I think he saw that I was on his deck, and he came to my room, and, well, he asked me if I wanted to buy some. I didn't take it, of course. Weed is not really my thing. I've done it a couple times, let's be honest here, but it's not something that I do regularly. When it came to the nightclub, I gotta say, it was a little ratchet and ghetto and hood up in there. I mean, I don't mean this in a race way. They had all types of flavors and colors in there, and everybody was twerking and throwing it back, and, well, I did, for the most part, have a good time in there because I'm somebody that is adaptable. I can blend in, and I can have fun in really any type of scenario or environment. Only thing I would say is that when it came to the nightclub and just kind of some of the environment on board, people were a little hostile from time to time. I would see arguments in the smoking area. There was almost a fight in my hallway because there was somebody down the hall that was blasting music. Security would come over and over again. They even came to my room and asked me to turn the music down. I didn't even have a speaker. Then they finally found out who it was, but prior to that, the neighbor ended up coming to the room. He's knocking on the door, well, more so banging on it because that music was loud. He told the guy, he said, hey, if you don't turn that down, I'm going to call security. Next thing I know, they're yelling back and forth, and thankfully security did eventually show up to kind of break it up. At the nightclub, there was almost a fight as well. There was a girl that was sitting in a chair, and then she got up out of the chair. Somebody took the chair, and, well, they almost got into a scuffle over that. But there was a actual fight on the last night on the cruise. I could feel the steam building up the whole time I was there. I knew it was going to happen, so I had my camera ready just in case. Naturally, I even was able to interview a nice gentleman that was holding one of the girls back from the fight. Apparently, it was all over a man. Somebody wanted someone else's man, and they were looking at the man the wrong way, and just like that, they called out fisticuffs and got right into it. It was absolutely wild. Now, moving on, if there is one thing I hate with a passion, it's the constant announcements on board Carnival ships. Now, somebody made a valid point, at least when it came to the older ships. They said that maybe there were a lot of new cruisers, which there were typically on the older ships. They don't exactly know the game plan. They don't know the flow. They don't know the events as far as bingo and karaoke. They don't know all this stuff is going on, even if it is on the app. However, I would argue I've been on newer Carnival ships, I've been on older Carnival ships, and I've sailed with almost every mainstream line. Carnival is the only one that every hour, it seems like maybe even every 30 minutes, they get on the PA and they start announcing every single event that is going on for the rest of the day. For me, it is absolutely annoying, and I don't know why Carnival does that, but it's just something that I absolutely cannot stand. I'm thinking about just wearing earplugs throughout the day whenever I'm on the Carnival cruise ships moving forward. Now let's talk about the destinations. We had 2 ports of call for this 4-day sailing to the Caribbean. We had Princesses, which is part of Carnival, the Carnival Corporation, Princess Cay. It's their private island located over in the Bahamas. And while the place was extremely beautiful, it's a beautiful tropical destination. The Bahamas is one of the most beautiful places in the world. We all know this. The island itself was a non-event. There were no crazy slides. There were no jet skis. There was no scuba diving. Like, for me, I like all this big stuff. Keep in mind, it's a personal preference for me. I would say this is like a starter pack island, if you will. And I mean no disrespect by it. But I know the people over there genuinely had fun. Remember, there were a lot of new cruisers. And A lot of the people that I talked to were snowbirds. Me, I live in Florida, so I live right by the beach. And as somebody that has also been to other parts of the world and other beautiful islands, I hate to compare it, but we gotta talk about another private island, Perfect Day at Coco Cay. I swear while I was there, I would never compare, but it was just too tempting. This island has nothing on any of the other private islands, especially that of which being Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Royal Caribbean wins in that category. Fight me if you want to. I'm joking, guys, but just, hey, it is what it is. Royal Caribbean has Carnival and just about every other cruise line beat in that category. When it came to the entertainment on board the Carnival Conquest, they did have bands, they had comedians, which I'll talk about in a second, and of course they had a few production shows. Now, the production shows on board the Carnival Conquest were the exact same shows that were on board the Carnival Paradise, which I was sailing on just 1 week prior. I will say, when it comes to Carnival, because I have not only sailed on Carnival's older ships, I literally just got off a 2-week transatlantic sailing on Carnival's newest and largest ship, the Carnival Celebration. I just want to say, the production value for Carnival just isn't really there. And this is me coming from a picky, former performer, breakdancer, acrobat that has done theater and Broadway shows on board cruise ships and tours and theme parks. I just don't really care much for the Carnival entertainment. I think the production value overall is pretty low, but for what it is, it's still not bad. And this is not me knocking the talent in any way, shape, or form. The performers on board, which are good friends of mine, are extremely talented. I know some of the supervisors, I know some of the casting directors. I just don't like the formula that they use when it comes to a lot of these shows with Carnival. When it comes to the comedian, look, I will just say this. I do believe that Carnival is never in between. They either have the best or they have, well, a non-event, if you will. When it came to the comedian, there was one guy that was really funny, and they had another guy. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what planet this man was on, but this guy was higher than a kite. It was absolutely insane. He couldn't find his words, so he just ended up being a sailor. He was cussing like a sailor, potty mouth all over the place, saying N-word this and N-word that and sex jokes, and it wasn't in good taste. There was no punchline to it. He was just kind of spewing out whatever he thought would be funny, and you could just kind of read the room. There were people leaving of all different colors and races and everything. You could just tell a lot of people just weren't happy. I stuck around as part of, I guess you could say, being in the field and seeing what was going on. Overall, I was just disappointed in the comedy because whenever I'm on board a cruise ship and there are comedy shows, I typically go to every single one. I'll put it this way, if it wasn't for all the Jack and Coke that I had consumed, there's no way that I would have made it through any of this guy's comedy shows. The other one, yeah. The second one, not so much. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say that I'm being a negative Nancy, but just like any other cruise vacation, I still did have a great time overall. Were there some issues that took place? Sure. Did I get in a fight? No. Did I have any bad experiences and come in contact with somebody else and have a bad time? No, not at all. I would just say the food was as expected. Overall, besides the fights, well, let's be fair. I did kind of expect something to pop off eventually while I was on board, but overall, everything was pretty good and I had some fun on board the Carnival Conquest. Would I do it again? Maybe, I think so. I'm starting to like these older Carnival cruises. They're never boring. There's always something going on. So I think coming into next year, I'm probably going to jump on the rest of the fantasy class that is left. I think I got the Elation left, and I definitely want to do the Vista class as well. Go on the Panorama and the Vista and Horizon. Try those little bike things that they have going on board. But either way, guys, that is my review. I tried to make this one as brief as possible. I know I've been kind of delaying this one here and there, but I hope you guys found this enjoyable and valuable in some kind of way. For all you Carnival people, I apologize, all right? Don't shoot the messenger. This is just my personal experience, everything that went on while I was on board. Now, I do have a review coming up on the Carnival Celebration, and well, we're going to keep this thing moving. I appreciate all of you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I love all of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.